Hey everybody, Jim the Tabletop Engineer here, and welcome to a new crafting episode. If you watched the previous two videos, you will have seen that I am creating something I call the BT-35 Starfighter. It is a small 1 or 2 man fighter craft that is going to be used on the tabletop when I play sci-fi war games mostly. I guess you could use it in a role-playing game. But in the last episode, I greebled it up. I glued all the bits and details on it to give it more of a sci-fi looking feel. Before that, it was just plain chipboard. It was very plain, flat surfaces and stuff like that. So in between the last video and this one, I took it out and I primed it a flat gray. And then I primed it in this this blue. I'm not even sure what name this blue is. I guess I could find it out and put it in the description for you. I'll try to remember to do that. But I've got it all painted this flat blue. And in this episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some additional colors to give it some detail, pinstriping, things like that. And when it is done, hopefully it will be presentable for my wargaming table. So let's get to the tabletop, and I'm going to get this thing painted up. Okay, one of the things I feel very strongly about when it comes to this, not just this ship, but any things that I craft for my table, I am not going for perfection, all right? This thing is not going to be something that could put in a movie, and it's going to look, if you look at it up close, like how close I am to it now, you're going to notice imperfections. That's just part of the crafting. That's part of the crafting business. But what I want to do is I want to make it look more than just this solid blue. So I'm going to start out with just picking some areas. I've got a wide range of brushes here, and I'm doing this in acrylic paints. I'm not using any of my miniature paints, just using some acrylics so that I can add some distinct areas to this. One thing I need to do is I meant to grab a thing of black. I want to paint the cockpit top here black. But what I'm going to start out with, this, it's called dark blue. And I typically like to do 2 of the same colors, a lighter shade and a darker shade, when I do these things. So I'm going to put some of this out here. And it's not really dark, but it'll be distinct enough. The contrast will be, it's not going to be high contrast, but there will be contrast. So I thought what I would do is test this blue on these circles on the wings just to see what it looks like as a different color. And by the way, when I'm done with this, it doesn't mean I'm done with it. It's very possible I may go back at a later time and repaint things. Sometimes once I start using a craft on the table, I have been known to go back and fix things or add new colors or even change colors. It is not unlike me to repaint this entire thing one day. Maybe I paint it red. Probably not, because I do like this blue. But just be aware that the paint colors don't lock you in. That's what's the great thing about paint. You can always paint over everything. So I'm just going to paint some areas here. This darker blue. I'm not going to go crazy with the darker blue, but I don't want too many. I want the light blue to be mostly the body, if that makes sense. And then I'll hit the other items, the greebles and things like that, with alternate colors. I don't really have any. This was created from scratch, so I don't have a picture or like anything official to go by when it comes to the color. I'm just sort of doing this as I go, and really you're seeing it here. I'm painting this live because honestly I have no idea what colors I want to do here. So I'm just trying different things, and I can look on the video and tell because this is wet, it doesn't show up as much on the video, but I may have to give it a second coat. This has also got a slight gloss to it, and the lights from the shop are making it hard for you to see, but there is some distinct colors there. All right, let's keep going. By the way, these all these raised pieces are supposed to be, in my mind, they're supposed to be like added armor plating that's either been welded into place, or maybe there was a hull hole, excuse me, not a whole hull, a hole, and it was put in there to patch up the ship. But you can paint these any color you like. Obviously, it's your, if you've made one, it's your ship. But I like my ships to have plating. I don't know why I do that, but a lot of these wood pieces are going to be plating items. All right, let's go with a different color. And this is not going to be a really long video because honestly, there's not really that much to paint. I want to throw in a few colors here and there just to make things pop out, and that will be it. If you want to see this thing up close, obviously I'll shoot some up close pictures and post them with the video, but if you want to see this thing up close and in personal, you'll need to make a trip down to Atlanta or up to Atlanta, depending on where you are. And if I'm going to play in any games at the local shops, especially the sci-fi like Stargrave, this one would be something I would bring just in case somebody wanted to, you know, add it to the tabletop. Obviously, you don't want to add it to too many games, but I like to bring a lot of my sci-fi terrain so that my opponents can sort of pick what draws their eye, and of course what looks good in photos. This gray is just it's too thinned out. I may have to give it some multiple coats. Let's see. Oh yeah, I did want to paint the engines inside here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave those alone. Those look really cool. I'll probably paint these cowlings. Because this is plastic, I may have to use miniature paint for that. I just don't know yet. The paint surface on it is going to be tricky to get these acrylics to stick to. But the wood is no problem. The paint sticks to it just fine. Okay, the gray is just too light. So I'm gonna let that dry a little bit and add something different to it. I did want to add some running colors to it, so we shall see if this looks okay. I don't know. Blue and yellow. I like blue and yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some yellow to these stripes that run along near the cockpit here and along the wings. And I'm hoping the yellow is I hate yellow, by the way, just because yellow just seems to never cover what you need. But I'm hoping I can get enough of it on here that it'll stand out when it dries. And I may have to do multiple coats. Let me paint these three. I'll flip it around so you can see it. And it is going to require probably another coat. I can just tell because this yellow but the blue behind it. I debated after I primed it. I debated painting it with spray paint. I just thought it would be easier to paint the entire thing one solid color and then go back like I'm doing now and hit the other colors. If I had left it primed, it probably would have been a little easier to paint these yellow runners and some of the other items because the primer just would have been a better surface. But it also would have been very difficult to get down in the recesses and things with whatever color I ultimately went for the body. So yeah. So there's the yellow runners, and they don't look good because it's all splotchy, but I'm gonna go with another coat in just a little bit. And we'll see if that makes it look any better. And the other thing is these are wood dowels that I glued on here, so they're a little rough on the surface. But again, I'm not going for perfection here. This thing does not have to look, you know, super realistic on the table. It's representing a miniature spaceship on the table in my war games. So from a distance, it'll look fine. If you look up close is when you'll see all the imperfections and stuff. And I think I've talked about this in a previous video or two. You know, one of the things that I really like about our crafting community is, you know, people tend to be very understanding and not harsh with one another when it comes to the things they create. I suspect that there are a lot of people out there that craft quite a bit of stuff, but they don't share it online or in videos or however they want to do it, because they are nervous about the reception. Like, how will people, respond to my stuff? Some people, criticism can be very painful. It hurts. I I have an I don't care attitude. I've written for so many years and had so many editors. Sometimes you turn a chapter in and the editor's like, this was perfect. And then sometimes they send it back and say, man, you really got to work on this. This is horrible. As a writer, if you write for a career, you tend to develop very thick skin. And you have to. Or you just won't survive in the industry. And I think it's that thick skin that has helped me not take things personally. I've had people post in comments. I've had people direct message me or send me emails about things, and I've even had people at the game store say, "Yeah, that looks really cool, man, but up close it looks like whatever." And you just are like, "Okay, thank you, move on." People will say a lot of things, and you have to get over that. And I'm telling you this because I just looked at our membership count for the Tabletop Crafters Guild, and we're over 40,000 members. 40,000 people check into this Facebook group and for ideas, for inspiration, to ask questions. And I've got to think that there are so many people who are crafting regularly, but they're not sharing their stuff. And all I can do is encourage you. We, the admins of the group, we try our hardest to police the group and keep it family friendly, keep it friendly, and we want you to post your stuff on the Facebook group, your questions obviously, but we want you to post what you're making. And if you're worried about the haters or people coming down on your stuff, I understand. I've been there. But I would tell you that you've got a community here who will be very positive, and most crafters, if you turn a photo in on the Facebook group, they're very positive. They'll tell you they love it, or they'll ask questions about how you did certain things. But if we find someone being overly negative or critical, we'll nix that. We'll delete the comment, or in some cases, we have removed members that we felt were just too toxic for the group. So I encourage you to keep sharing your stuff. I've said this before. There are not a lot of crafting. Okay, I'll take it back. There are a lot of crafting videos for gaming. There are a significant number since I started watching crafting videos years and years ago. But honestly, there's not that many. And we need more. And we need people to, if they don't want to do a YouTube channel, we need them to share their videos, or shoot little snippet videos and put them on the Facebook groups where people can check it out. I know that I've spoken with DM Scotty and Bill Wylock, and one of the problems we have is when we take a break from crafting, whether it's a short one or a significant one, people are like, oh man, no more videos. There's plenty of videos out there, but the problem is there's not enough to satisfy everybody for long periods of time. If I stop for months and months for whatever reason, I get emails saying, hey man, when are you going to start crafting again? And trust me, I love crafting. But sometimes family obligations and personal matters and things like that interrupt. And so I say this only to encourage people. The more people who are contributing videos in our hobby, either to the Facebook group or to YouTube, it buys a little time for those of us who need to sometimes take breaks, or when you go through dry spells where you just don't feel like you've got the creativity you need to keep adding. And those happen. Trust me, those happen. Every now and then I go through a period where I just need to recharge, and you never know how long that recharge is going to require. It could take weeks. It could take months. So my long rambling is just to encourage you to please, if you have something to contribute to the community in terms of videos or photos, please share them, and don't be nervous about it. Get them out there so that people can see and ask questions, and hopefully people will be, kind and considerate, and not give you grief about the stuff you submit. I forgot a few areas on the front here that I meant to do. And so I got to tell you, I've been waiting a long time to get this thing made, because I wanted something roughly this size to put on the wargaming tables for the games I play. I play Stargrave, and I play 5 Parsecs from Home. Those are the 2 sci-fi war games that I play, and this ship is going to be perfect for both of those. I didn't want something too big, and when I say too big, I made, if you look back at some of my older videos, I made this Thunderhawk, which is a Warhammer a Warhammer ship. I made my own out of chipboard and stuff, and it's probably, about this big, and the wingspan is almost as big. And the problem with that ship, as much as I love it, it's so big that you need a 3x3. You really need to be playing on a 3x3 play area, and I rarely play on a 3x3 play area when I play solo games. Mainly because with solo games, I want to get into the action, and when you play on a 2x2, it goes faster. And so I just say that I've been wanting to craft a ship that's slightly smaller, that would fit better on those smaller tables that I tend to play on. All right, I'm going to take a break real quick and get some black paint. I'll be right back. Now, one question I do have for those of you watching this particular video, I suspect that a lot of the people watching this video play a sci-fi role-playing game or war game and not fantasy. I'm going to be trying to split my time between fantasy terrain and sci-fi terrain. And I'm not quite certain, what the spread is of viewers. I know that fantasy is more popular. D&D is definitely popular. I know people play Starfighter, Pathfinder in space. But my question really is, do you like this kind of thing? I have more ships that I want to make, but I don't want to flood my channel with tons of them if people prefer more fantasy stuff. Obviously, I need to make... Now, one caveat is I am always going to make stuff that's relevant to whatever games I'm playing. But I do play fantasy games. And as a matter of fact, I've got 2 new ones that I've been playing recently. One's called Lasting Tales, and the other one is called 5 Leagues from the Borderland. Both of those are solo war games, fantasy war games, and they're very fun. If you have not seen them in action, I have a matching channel to this one called the Tabletop Engineer Plays. And on that channel is where I upload my solo games. Well, I guess it could not. Some games I play with my son, so those technically aren't solo. But most of the stuff I post over there is me playing solo games. So if you're looking for a solo fantasy war game, I've got these 2 that you can check out: Lasting Tales and 5 Leagues from the Borderland. I'm playing both of them, and you can watch some videos of those over at the Tabletop Engineer Plays. Now, I didn't think about this. Oh, yeah, I did want to do this. One thing I would tell you is if you want more fantasy terrain, obviously you need to be watching the masters like, Bill, Wylock, and Scotty. Although Bill does do sci-fi. He does sci-fi, and I guess Scotty's done some sci-fi too. But they have a lot more fantasy stuff, I think, than they do sci-fi. And I probably am sort of catching up on the sci-fi stuff. I prefer sci-fi over fantasy. I hope that doesn't offend anyone. I read more science fiction than I do anything else, any fantasy or other type of genres. I have not before Stargrave came out, I really didn't play any sci-fi war games, and Warhammer was just too much for me to take. I tried Warhammer, and I still have some miniatures, but I just haven't been able to pull the trigger on getting into Warhammer. And it's expensive, and it's time-consuming. I mean, the amount of miniatures you got to paint to get into that game is quite high. But yeah, the smaller skirmish-style war games, once 5 parsecs came out, and it was designed as a true solo war game. Once that dropped and I got my hands on the 3rd edition of it, I didn't look back. I've really enjoyed playing that, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. I love Stargrave, and I have been meaning, and I promise I'm going to do it. I've been meaning to start playing a solo game of that uses the bounty hunter rules. I think they're called Wanted. I think it's called Dead or Alive or Wanted Dead or Alive. I can't remember. But the creator, Joseph McCullough, released a set of rules to help people play Stargrave solo. And it's called Wanted or Dead or Alive or something like that. And I've got the rules and I've read over them. And I just keep meaning to sit down and make a crew and start playing it. And I'm gonna do that, I promise. I'm going to get that going. All right, I'm going to need some other color. I don't want to go too crazy with like red and green and blue and yellow. And all. I want the ship to not be too much. So I'm leaning towards, I think I'm going to get some silver and do some brushing here and there. Metallics tend to be very hard when you're painting this kind of stuff, but let's see what it looks like. I want to paint those gun turrets. I want to paint some of the plating. As a matter of fact, let me see what it looks like on this. Oh, that over the gray, that actually doesn't look too bad. Not bad at all. Now what I'll do is if I've made any mistakes like paint brush over, I may take some of this blue that I spray painted and spray some and then just use it for touch up. But again, not caring about perfection right now. Just do not care. And so I may put that off for a while until until enough people tell me that it bugs them, and even then I probably won't do it. But once it starts bugging me, that's when I'll do something about it. All right, gun turrets are silver, which it's not overly bright, but that's okay. Yeah. Again, I think the best way to, I'll shoot some photos of this, close-up photos, after I finish painting it. But the best way to get the general idea of this is to see it in person. And unfortunately, a lot of you aren't going to be able to do that since you're not here in Atlanta. But those of you who do play me Stargrave at some of the gaming stores, yes, I will be bringing this one around. As I usually bring this 1 or 2 bags of terrain, sci-fi terrain, and this will be included in that, so you will get a chance to see it up close. Let me see, what do I want to do here? Paint these. There's a lot of blue left, but again, I don't want to go too crazy with too many colors because I just don't think it will look good with a lot of colors. And I also want to weather it, and I think that's going to involve a dark wash over this, so we will see about that. Let me paint these, just the tops of them, just to give it some, so it stands off that blue. And there we go. All right, now I've got some granny grading glued here. The thing about the granny grading is if the paint goes down in there, it's not going to look right, so I got to be very careful to just brush over the top of it. Yeah, that'll do. And it's not significant. As a matter of fact, you can hardly see it at all, so it may not even be worth doing. But I'm gonna do it anyway. Maybe when it dries, it'll stand out a little bit more. And there's some on the sides here. I'll get those. No, it's not really jumping out. It's that metallic. It just doesn't cover very well. It'll take so many coats to make it really pop. But that's okay. Now, I am going to have to paint these cowls with some sort of miniature paint just because I don't think, yeah, the silver is not going to do so well on this. Let me see what this looks like. As a matter of fact, it does look kind of cool. It's kind of like a brushed, well, of course it's brushed silver. There, you can see sort of the blue beneath it, but it gives it a metallic blue. I like that. That actually doesn't look too bad. I'm going to do that to all the engine cowls on the back of the ship here. Oh, I do like that. Sometimes you luck into something that just you're like, oh wow, that turned out looking good, and that was one of them. I didn't know how that would look. I'll have to repaint the black part of this, so I'll just go around it real fast, and once it dries, I'll come back with the black and clean it up a little bit. And by the way, I'm not painting much on the bottom. I'll probably paint the landing gear, and that's it. The rest of it is pure flat. Notice, no greebles. Why? Because this thing's going to be sitting, not playing. It's not meant as a toy, so I don't care that the bottom is not painted. And likewise, I'm probably not going to paint the bottom of the cowls unless it starts to bother me. And again, most things don't bother me. If I'm just using it as plain terrain on the tabletop, I'm not going for perfection. I don't care. Now, I mean, to a point, I do. If this thing looked like garbage, I'd be embarrassed to take it. But you're your best judge. I know when something just doesn't meet my standards, and believe me, my standards are not super high. My rule is get it on the table, play more games, less crafting, more playing. I love crafting, but my stance is always going to be making stuff so that I can play and have more fun at the tabletop. And I have more fun at the tabletop when I'm playing with terrain that just matches the theme of whatever I'm doing. So that's why I make it, but ultimately I just want to get it painted and get it down on the table so I can play. And I think that matches with the group of players. There's a lot of people who don't play so much as they just like to paint miniatures and models and stuff. And that's the cool flip side to it. If you're one of those people, this would probably drive you insane because of the shoddiness of the paint job. But and I'm envious of those people who have the patience and the skill to be so meticulous about the paint job on a model like this or a miniature. But even with the miniatures, I do the exact same thing. I'm more about get the paint on the mini, make it look decent enough that it'll look cool in photos, but I don't care if you can see the wrinkles underneath the guy's eyeballs or the pupils or what have you. I want to get the miniature on the tabletop so I can play it. All right. What else do I have? It's one of those things where you go, okay, it needs a little more, but then again, I'm a little nervous about over adding. I do want to paint the cowls, but I'm probably going to do that off camera. When I get some miniature paints out to do some miniatures, I'll paint those cowls. But for right now, I'm just going to leave them blue to match the rest of the ship. Oh, I did want to paint the coils. I did want to do that. I think what I'm going to do with those is I'm going to go with a dark gray, not black, not light gray, but I pulled out this dark gray because I remembered I wanted to paint these coils on the back of the engine here. Now, when I'm done with this, probably I will let it dry for a few hours or more, and then I'm going to hit it with a wash. So I'll show that part of the video as well. But after I paint these parts, I'm going to take a break from this and get back to some other crafting that I'm doing while the paint dries, and then I'll come apply the wash. And this is just, I hope it dries a little darker. It's kind of light right now, and that's okay. And I don't care if it's getting down in the crevices between the coils, because that's where the wash hopefully is going to settle and do its thing. So I just wanted to put a color on it other than blue. And right now it looks like it's drying pretty quick, so I may wait a second. Let me see, is there anything else I want to do? Oh, these panels, let me paint those. Yeah. Maybe there was something that didn't look quite right. It looked too plain. All right, that'll do. And again, the wash is probably going to mute a lot of the colors that I'm painting here or dirty them up. So the ship is not supposed to look brand spanking new anyway, at least not in my mind. All right, that is it. I'm going to pause the camera, let the paint dry. I'll come back and do the wash on this, and then we'll see what the final thing looks like. All right, now that the paint is dried, I want to put a wash over it just to take the color down a little bit, take some of the shine off of it, and just give it a little weathered look. To do that, I'm going to use a mix of water, just a couple drops of Airbrush Flow Improver, and black paint. And this is an art, not a science. I mean, I guess you could say it's a science because some people have mastered a particular mix. I just do it based on kind of how it looks and the consistency of it. Now for this Airbrush Flow Improver, you really just want just a couple little drops. That is it. You don't need a lot of it. What it's going to do is help it flow into the edges and the corners and the dark spots or dark recesses and help it get down in there and stay there. All right, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to mix just a little bit of black. Just use a brush, just stir it up a little bit. You do not want this thick like paint, but you do need to make sure that it's, it should have the consistency of water, or at least when I'm using when I'm doing it on chipboard, you want to have it like water, but not thick. But you also, I don't know quite how to explain it. You'll have to test it. So what I do is I usually just take the brush, and I can tell just by dropping it on the edge of the clear thing, it's running really smooth. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see if I can hold that up. When I touch the brush to the edge, look how fast it flows down that plastic cut. It just goes right down it. That's what I was going for. I've done this enough that I kind of know how much to use. That's only about a half an inch, not even a half an inch of water. And you saw I put about 3 drops of black paint, maybe 4, and a couple drops of the airbrush thinner. So I'm just going to take this, and what I want to do first is I want to hit the. Oh, that looks so good. I'm doing it on this coil, on these coils on the back, and just as I expected, they're getting down in there, and it'll dry, and it'll make those coils really pop out. The other thing I want to do is I want to get. I try to, and so it doesn't pool, I try to start near one edge and go to the next like this. So I'm doing the neck. I'm just flowing it along here. And then I use the brush and just make sure none of it's pooling in like bubbles. You don't want bubbles on it when it's done. So just use your brush to sort of pull it out. And this is, again, there's no science to this. You just make sure you get a good coverage. You don't want it sopping. You do not want it sopping. So, try and brush off any excess. And you'll notice excess is where it pools in little circles. Try to get those all out. Now, if it pools near the edges, that's okay. That's not a real problem. But you definitely don't want it pooling on the paint. And so you'll have to spend some time just taking your brush and going over areas that look like they're going to be trouble. And really all this is going to do is dirty the ship up. It's not really going to, unlike miniatures when you put washes on them, or when you put a wash on them, it'll get in the crevices and make details pop out. The details on something this size are just not, they're not intricate enough or not small enough that the wash is really gonna make a difference. What this wash is really doing for me is dirtying up the ship, making it look a little bit worn and used. Now, if you don't like that effect, don't put a wash on it. Keep it clean. There are other ways also to dirty up a model. Some people will use like an air spray, or what do you call it? Just a can of spray paint, and they can lightly, like real fast, zip over it. And if you use like a dark gray or whatever, it can give it a texture or at least a pattern of dirt and grime. Some of the other channels also have their own mixes and suggestions for adding dirt and grime. There's even paints and mixtures from some of the paint companies that, like, some of them are called rust, and they'll put rust on the ship, for example, or allow you to dirty metal. And I've not ever really done that for these larger models. I just want this thing not to look so clean, so pretty blue. So I'm just taking the wash where I can, and you'll note I've got a lot left. You do not have to make a lot of this. If you start with a 1/2 inch of water and you end up using all this, you put too much on your model. That's definitely just too much wash. And what you may find, and I've had this happen to me, and it's a trial, it's a learn by experience. You can actually soften up the chipboard. That's, at least, a lot of this exposed is paint on chipboard, but that liquid will get through the paint and soften that chipboard, and you don't want that. So I tend to try to, you'll notice I'm going over areas that I've already done, just trying to, if it starts pooling, I'm just trying to pull it away and not let it sit too long on any one spot. All right, there we go. All right, let me get the back here. I also start at the top because water wants to run down, gravity, right? So start at the top, let the wash do its work for you. Let gravity help you by pulling it down. And if you start at the bottom, you're going to waste a lot of your wash because it's just going to drip off. So start at the top and work your way down. And I am almost done. It does not. The great thing about putting a dirty wash to dirty up something is it doesn't take a lot of time. You're not going for detail. You're not trying to. You're just throwing it on there and trying to make sure it doesn't pool up too much. And it usually does not take too long. Now, what I do is for metallic parts, plastic that have been painted metal, like the guns and the engines on the back, I'll hit them and just let some pool. It doesn't matter. If it dries, it'll give it a nice, it'll dull that metal down and give it a more realistic look. At least that's what I find. Let's see. There we go. Did I do the front? No, I didn't. Didn't do the front. And I've only used about half of the wash, and I'm pretty much done here. I'm not going to do the bottom of the model. Again, you can do the bottom of your model if you like. I will do the landing gear, and I didn't paint the landing gear. Probably should have, but that's okay. I'm going to just hit it with a little bit of the wash just to dirty it up. And then just spin the model around, make sure you got everywhere. Looks like I did. And I'm going to go back over... oh, I didn't do the engines. That's right. So I got to do the cowls around the engines here. Start at the top, work your way down. I'm just going to hit those with some of the wash, get them inside, dirty up the engines are going to be dirty. They're supposed to be, right? They're always going to have exhaust and grease and stuff like that. So dirty them up a little bit. And I think that's about it. Spin it around. Yep. And now the wash will take a little while to dry because it's I mean, depends on, I guess, your environment. Here in Atlanta, I'm in a cool basement. It's not so warm, and the humidity's low, so it's hard to say how long it'll take to dry, but it's not going to dry in 30 minutes, so it'll take a little bit longer. I'm going to hit these coils with a little bit more just because they're plastic, and I don't mind if they get a little extra on them. But they turned out really nice with the wash on them. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I'm going to let the wash dry, and then I'll take some close-up photos, and we'll come back to the tabletop and see what it looks like all weathered up. All right, so here you go. The BT-35 Starfighter is weathered. I don't know how well it's going to show up on video. I'm looking at the video, and it's not what I would call easy to spot. But in person, it's definitely got a weathered, dirty look to it. It definitely took the blue down a few notches, and it's hard to describe. It definitely looks like it's been through a few battles, and it's dirty. It's that typical Star Wars, look where everything's sort of used. But so fun to make. Let me give you a heads-on view here. You can see, I think now you can see the engines, the wheels inside that I put in there. I still haven't decided if I'm going to paint the cowling. I think I will eventually, but right now it looks fine matching the standard blue of the ship. So there you go. Now, here's the deal. If you decide to make one of these, even if it doesn't look like this, but whatever your method is, I would love to see it. You know, this mechanic of building the shell out of chipboard, and you don't have to use chipboard. These shapes, the rectangle, this unusual shape right here, all of these basic shapes could have been cut from foam. If you have like a foam cutter, like a Proxxon, you could easily cut most of these shapes. Now you might need thick foam, or you may have to stack it. I know that you can get the XPS foam in like up to 2 inches. Maybe I've even heard of 4 inches. I've never seen it, but here in Atlanta, I know sometimes I can get 2-inch foam. There is none of these shapes. These engine cowlings right here, I believe, are about 2 inches tall. But none of these shapes are anything that couldn't be made out of foam. I just chose to make them out of chipboard. So definitely doable. And then, of course, if you made it out of foam, you would just glue the greeblies on as needed. You would probably want to coat the foam. Well, I was going to say coat the foam in like Mod Podge, but you'd probably want to do that after you put all the greeblies on, because I don't know how gluing things to the Mod Podge would hold. I guess you could hot glue, but I don't know about like standard, standard white glue. But I hope you like it. It was really fun to make. And it's gonna look perfect on the table in a sci-fi setting. I have this idea in my mind that I want to make a 3-foot by 3-foot hangar bay, with like hangar bay stuff. I don't know what that would be, but tools and maybe consoles and maybe some disassembled ships and things like that. So I've got some ideas, but for my next game of either 5 parsecs from home or maybe Stargrave, this is definitely going to play a part of that table. All right, and again, if you make something like this, please consider sharing it on my Facebook group, The Tabletop Engineer, or over at the Tabletop Crafters Guild. Either place or both places, I would love to see your take on this. Now, if you don't want to make something like this, but you have access to a 3D printer, I'm going to add a picture right here. This is a catted up version of my ship, and it was made by Sable Badger, and I'll put links to his Patreon in the description below. If you become a patron of his, you can get, he makes all sorts of stuff regularly that you can download and 3D print, and then eventually he makes them free. And as I understand it, he's going to put this out on some sites like Thingiverse and maybe some others, so you will be able to get this. I cannot remember if this is, I think he breaks this into 3 parts, maybe more. I can't remember. I haven't seen the files yet. But if you want something just like this, but you don't want to make it, if you hang tight for a little bit, you should be able to get an STL file or files that you can 3D print and glue together that look pretty close to this. As a matter of fact, he added some embellishments to it that I kind of wish I had done. He added some like hinges for the canopy, for the cockpit. There were some other little details that he added that I thought were perfect. So check that out if you want to 3D print a version of this. All right, that is all I have for this week. I will be back next Wednesday with a new crafting video. I'm changing gears. Next week it is a fantasy RPG or war game crafting project. I think you'll like it. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm looking over at it over here, and it's almost done, and it should be done in the next few days, well enough in advance to get it up for next Wednesday. All right, this is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. I appreciate you joining me. I hope you like this craft, and I will see you next Wednesday. Everybody, take care.